Hello there, I'm Autistic Genius and welcome to another Wavelength Part 7. Whee! This is an interesting report by CBS on genes, not as in these ones, as in genes that you pass on to your children. So let's have a look then, shall we?
In our morning rounds, cracking the code of autism.
Cracking the code of autism! Let's see how we can do it! That's too hard. Let's just carry on watching.
Two large new studies identify more than 100 genes involved in autism spectrum disorders. Now, scientists are calling these findings a major turning point in understanding how mutations disrupt nerve networks in the brain.
So, what they're saying is there's loads of new genes that disrupt the brain, and they use the word mutant. So, in a sense, does that mean that we're going to become like the X-Men, have fucking superpowers and take over the world or something? No, of course it flipping well doesn't!
Tell us why this is such a big deal to the researchers and certainly for the families who are living with autism.
At the moment, I don't think it's a very big deal. I just think it's another pointless news report, but we'll see.
So there have been several studies done with small numbers of samples. In these, dozens of labs across the world got together and combined their samples. And with newer genetic technologies, they
Is it me, or is he really patronising?
were able to identify dozens of genes that are associated with autism, and then hundreds more that are probably associated. So we're now getting to learn the map. And while that may sound very complicated, they all converge on three functions within the brain.
And what are those three functions, Doctor? Oh, you don't know. So you've essentially found out nothing.
And David Agus, I thought that was really interesting about this study is that through genomic sequencing that many of these mutations are de novo, meaning they're not coming from their parents, they happen right before conception, right?
How could a child get something before conception? Then it obviously is the bloody parents.
Yeah, so there are two buckets, if you will.
There are two buckets. Great big buckets. Bigger than everything you've ever seen. Two giant buckets. Arrgh!
Some come from the mother and father, and a big fraction are de novo. They happen either in the sperm or the egg before they come together. And
so that's not before conception, really. That is conception. So it's happening during conception.
so they're new. And as we get to understand what they do and how they work, the hope is we can then use them to identify early what's going on in autism in a child.
Is it just me? I know I keep interrupting him, but it's almost as if that he's talking to me as if I'm watching like a fucking Nick Jr. And he's going to start singing in a minute.
So to be clear, so there are some genetic causes of autism, and these other ones may be environmental.
How does the environment cause autism?
Yeah, so we know in autism there's genetic causes and they're environmental. Remember, environment doesn't just mean the outside environment. It means anything non-genetic. And so they're two separate, they come together, and they're a perfect storm. Happens a lot more in boys than girls.
Right. So according to this, you are going to if you have autism, this is what causes autism. Obviously, genes passed down. Siblings with ASD. So if your parents don't have autism, but your brother or sister does, you've got it. Where's the logic in that? Children born to older parents. Does that really... How? How? Taking drugs during pregnancy. Yes, if the mother of the child is taking something like heroin, or, you know, something really nasty during pregnancy. Yes, that does cause issues with the baby. And autism may be one of them. Postnatal environment. Postnatal environment. I was trying to... What does postnatal mean? We've Googled what that postnatal environment means. Basically, it means anything outside the woman, outside your mother's uterus. How do... Obviously, things outside can cause autism, but... What? My only thing I'm aware of is that sometimes, you know, when you have a severe head injury, that can do something to your brain. Like, you know, and then somehow give you autism. I don't know how that happens either. But what?
Interesting is that the genetics of autism in boys and girls who are low functioning, low IQ is different.
So if I have autism and somebody else has autism, The genes are different. Of course they are, because we're bloody different people.
From boys, where it predominantly is high functioning, high IQ.
Is autism on the rise?
Is autism on the rise? It's not the bloody apocalypse, man. What do you think? Gonna get a Walking Dead on down here? Jesus Christ, these people are idiots.
It clearly is when you look at the numbers on the rise over the last couple of decades. This study doesn't really address that because we're looking in one moment in time.
We can't address the fact that autism's on the rise because we're looking at one moment in time.
They didn't go back and look at the samples from decades ago to try to understand that reason there's a change, but something is clearly happening.
I know what the change is. People are becoming more aware of autism and finding it easier to spot in young children. What do you think about that, Columbo?
One other thing, one more thing.
Well, how will this help us find a new treatment or a test for families?
Well, right now, today, this data can be used very shortly to actually diagnose children early.
What? 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 How?
And start behavioral treatments. But by converging on these three mechanisms, the hope is we can now develop drugs to target these mechanisms.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. Stop you there. Ability to diagnose with blood test. How? How is autism going to be diagnosed with blood test? This is beyond. Maybe they do, but I don't get that. How? It's not even in the blood. Autism isn't even in the blood. You can't have autistic blood. What's it going to do? Go the other way around your body or something? Do something different? It's not. There's no such thing. Counselling for parents at risk. Okay, fair enough. If they feel they're doing something like taking drugs or blah, blah, blah. What kind of goes on at that? Yeah, you know, knock at the door. Hi there. I'm with the medical people and I believe that you're at risk of having an autistic child. Does that just sound ridiculous to you, or is it just me? New therapies and medications. Well, new therapies, yes. Medication. Autism's like the common cold. You can't cure it, but you can certainly do things with the symptoms. Like, for example, autism comes with things like anxiety and depression and God knows what in my experience. So you can treat these things, but you can't treat the autism because it's not a disease.
And if you're a child with autism, we can put you in a particular bucket with that mechanism and hopefully give you the right drug to change the course of the disease.
Change the course of the disease. One, it's not a disease. Two, if you give a child drugs to treat the actual autism they have, you are effectively changing their personality. It may sound daft, but you will, and it's not good.
And make a major impact in your life and your family's life.
These are some big studies. Thank you so much, Dr. David Agus.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Oh my God. Sorry for being so angry and a little bit sweary. It really makes me angry when they refer to autism as a disease and talk about it. And the way they're studying it, I think, is not healthy because they're studying it as if it's some sort of disease and like they're looking at it medically when really it's not a medical thing. I think it's more about the theory of it and the philosophy that we have to look at to really get behind it, because in all my, I sit here and I preach. I've got autism and I've worked and supported people with autism. I have never, ever, ever once looked at it, never, ever, ever, ever medically studied it, because there's no point in my eyes, because it didn't do anything. If I found out that 1,000 genes can cause autism, how's that gonna make a flipping difference to a person, to the person with it? It's gonna make no difference at all. You have to look at the theory and the philosophy and how that person behaves and how you can help that person to behave and work within a function within normal society. You can't just like start throwing drugs at people and shit like that. It's bad news. And comments. Raymond Bowman on Facebook says, "Turn that frown upside down, Michelle Ghostwriter Lynn. I hope my little girl. I love my little girl so much, and I hope that one day I can come home from work and hold a conversation with her about a day and watch her socialise with friends would be a dream come true. I hope for the best for this research." Yes, I hope for the best of all forms of autistic research. This research to me, it could be beneficial, but I don't like the path it's going down, the medical route using drugs. What I do think that this person, Raymond Bowman, is maybe one day it is possible. You just need to work, and it's hard. I'm not going to lie, it's hard. But trust me, if you really push, really find ways that work for your child, and look on the internet for different ways to help children socialise or people socialise with autism. There's for millions and hundreds of people, hundreds of websites that you can go to. Just keep researching and find a way that works for you. Please don't resort to this medical drugs thing. I don't think it's healthy. This is amazing research. I'm so glad they're doing research like this. Yes, I am glad they're doing research about autism, but I don't think... I think the fact that it's got the genes are linked to it is obvious. I think it's obvious. My dad's side of the family, I've got 3 uncles, right? 2 of them are autistic, and then my dad probably is, but didn't get diagnosed. So there's obviously, I could have told you that. Great they're doing research about autism, but I think, in my opinion, it's not relevant. I think we need to, I know it sounds harsher, and maybe people don't like this theory, but I think we should be studying behaviour, and people should be talking to people who suffer with autism, listening to them. I think people should be discussing it with people who are affected by it and what they deal with. That's the research. And by talking to people, that's how the research is done, not by taking blood samples and faffing with it and mixing it in a bowl and going, oh, that turned green, that means this. It's no. Talk to people and find ways to help them, and it's just the best way to do it. Anyway, that's my opinion on the matter. I don't like this kind of research. I think, well, if it's going to do some people some favours, it's going to help someone, then fair enough. I will take back everything I've said, but from what I can see, it's not going to help no one. Thank you so much for watching. I'm the Autistic Genius, and have a good however long it is till I see you again. Bye bye.